Have you ever wondered what it would take to just start over, to build a better world from the ground up? Well, today, we're diving into a massive collection of documents that claims to be exactly that. I'm not talking about some philosophical treatise. This is a detailed architectural blueprint for a new civilization.
So let's just sit with that for a second. What if you had a step-by-step manual? Not just vague ideas, but the engineering specs, the ethical codes, the economic models, the whole shebang. It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right? But the blueprint we're about to unpack is so incredibly detailed, it's honestly kind of mind-blowing.
All right, so where do you even start with something this big? Well, the blueprint unfolds in layers, kind of like a fractal. And to get the whole picture, we have to start with the smallest, most fundamental piece, the individual. Or, as this system calls it, the sovereign digital self. Now, this very digital journey actually begins with something surprisingly physical, the Aura capsule. Yeah, it's a high-tech, medical-grade hyperbaric pod, but get this, it's made from pure quartz sand from a specific place, Minjerribah in Australia. This is not just a random detail. The blueprint calls this geopoetic alchemy, this whole idea of embedding ancient, meaningful materials right into our most futuristic technology. So what happens when you get inside one of these things? You go through what's called a 60-session Genesis protocol. For the first 20 sessions, the pod sensors are just learning about you, mapping your unique biological quirks and responses. Then an AI takes all that data and designs personalized sensory experiences. Think light, sound, temperature, all to boost your well-being. But this final phase is where it gets really wild. It's designed to literally measure and even train your ability to consciously influence your own biology. We're talking mind over matter, quantified. And the final result of all this, your digital twin. Let's be really clear here. This is not just another social media profile. This is meant to be a living, dynamic digital reflection of you, integrating your biology, your memories, your skills. And here is the absolute most important part of this entire system. You own it, 100%. The data is yours. You and you alone control the keys.
So how do you actually interact with this twin? Well, it's not pre-programmed. The relationship evolves over time based on how you use it. It could become something like the Guardian, a really proactive co-pilot that helps you navigate life. Or it might become the Oracle, more of a passive knowledge bank that just serves as your perfect memory. It adapts to you, not the other way around.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. This is where things could get really dystopian really fast. And the designers knew that, so they built in 3 non-negotiable ethical rules. First, clothing, not skin, which means no implants, no neural links. Your twin is an external partner, not a forced merger with your body. Second, sovereignty through severability. You must always have the ability to just unplug, no questions asked. And finally, data with dignity, which we already mentioned. Your data is always yours, period. These aren't just suggestions. They're hard-coded into the system's DNA. Okay, so we've got these empowered, sovereign individuals with their digital twins. But a person isn't a society, right? What happens when they all start interacting? What kind of economy do they build? Well, that brings us to layer 2. Their answer is something called the braided economy. And what I find so fascinating about this is that it doesn't try to tear down our current system. Not at all. Instead, it weaves a completely new one right alongside it, creating this hybrid model that bridges 2 totally different ways of thinking about what has value. So on one side of the braid, you have the financial economy we all know. It's for business, products, services, all measured in dollars or whatever your local currency is. But braided right into it is the reciprocity economy. And this is the radical part. It's an entire system designed to finally put a real value on all the essential work our current market just completely ignores. We're talking about caregiving, mentoring, volunteering, taking care of local ecosystems, all the invisible labor that actually holds our communities together. So how do you measure that kind of value? You'd think it'd be complicated, but the answer is incredibly simple. 1 hour of your time. They call it a community hour. 1 hour of your verified contribution to the community's well-being equals 1 unit of value. That's it. And it's all tracked on a transparent ledger. Its value isn't based on market speculation. It's grounded in the most real thing we all have, our time. Okay, individual, check. Community economy, check. But how do you actually scale something like this? How do you go from a few pods made of special sand in one little corner of the world to a functioning global network? Well, that is layer 3. The whole scaling strategy starts exactly where the sand for the pods came from, Minjerribah, Australia. The island is designated as the living laboratory. This isn't some computer simulation. It's where they plan to test everything in the real world, from actually manufacturing the pods locally, to rolling out the braided economy, to seeing if the community governance models actually work with real people. This is where the rubber meets the road. From that living lab, the plan is to scale out using a pretty unique venture capital model called Queen's VC, which, as the name suggests, specifically focuses on funding women-led ventures. You can see the phases laid out here. Phase 1 is the proof of concept in Australia. Phase 2 is all about replication across the G20 nations. And Phase 3, that's the end game, a planetary grid of tens of thousands of these interconnected ventures. And this chart really just puts the raw ambition into perspective. Look at that jump. The growth isn't meant to be slow and steady. It's exponential. The whole strategy is designed to go from a local experiment to a global force in just 3 big moves. They are thinking about massive scale from day one. So we've got the what and we've got the how. But that leaves the biggest, most important question of all. Why? Why on earth go to all this incredible, complicated trouble? For that, we have to peel back the final layer of this blueprint and look at the ultimate motivation, what the documents call the Protopian Gambit. The answer to why begins with a pretty stark and frankly alarming assessment of our world today. The blueprint argues that we're in a state of what it calls polycrisis. It's not just one problem or one conflict in one place. As their own analysis in this table from the document shows, the claim is that major conflicts are kicking off all at once across the entire globe, creating this profound planet-wide instability. And here is where the blueprint's logic takes a really fascinating turn. It argues that this geopolitical tension isn't happening in a vacuum. It claims these human conflicts are being amplified by a convergence of major physical events happening to our planet and in our solar system, an unusually strong solar cycle, a rare passing of multiple comets, and a major weird atmospheric event over Antarctica. The argument is that all these things combined are putting this immense, unseen pressure on all of us. All of this, the human conflict, the solar storms, the comets, is framed within this grand, almost mythic cosmic story. And this quote from the document really gets to the heart of it. The blueprint's creators are operating from a fringe scientific theory of a 12,000-year solar cycle that basically acts as a civilizational catalyst, like a planetary reset button. Now look, whether you believe that theory is kind of beside the point. For the people who built this project, that is the ticking clock. That is the ultimate high-stakes motivation for everything we've just looked at. So if you believe the world is facing a crisis of this magnitude, what do? Well, this entire system, the Aura capsules, the digital twins, the braided economy, this is their proposed answer. It's not a prediction of a doomed future. It's designed to be a proactive tool, a kind of choose-your-own-adventure framework for building a more resilient, a more regenerative civilization, designed specifically for this moment of intense global challenge. And that brings us to the end of our tour. And it leaves us with one heck of a question to chew on. We've seen the hardware, the digital souls, the new economy, and the cosmic backstory. So, is this a serious, practical engineering blueprint for our collective future? Or is it the most complex, most high-stakes game ever designed? You know, the more you look at it, the answer might just be both.